on this edition of the Booth Review. I've had a bunch of long days in New Orleans, but nothing like that one, London.
I know. A big win and a big easy, but it was anything but easy.
How about the magic of Jaden Daniels in the state where he won the Heisman?
And finally, the highly anticipated debut of Marshawn Latimore.
And you got to give out the belt to somebody this week. Welcome into this week's edition of the Booth Review. I'm Bram Weinstein with London Fletcher, Big Fletch. We are brought to you by Microsoft Surface, powering a better game. Whoa, we're dodging bullets these days, London. Whoa, that was something down there.
Man, you ain't kidding, man. We made that a lot tougher than it should have been, but at the end of the day, the game came out of there with a victory. One thing about the mistakes we made and all those things, the corrections that need to be taken, that need to take place is it's better to be celebrating and making those corrections in a victory than all of a sudden we're here on a Monday discussing a defeat. So they'll get those things corrected and get ready for Philadelphia this Sunday.
I got to tell you too, I don't remember a season like this in a long time. Like the way the Cincinnati game ended, the way the Dallas game ended, obviously the way the Chicago game ended, the way this game ended. This is one of the strangest up and down, you're going to have a heart attack type season every week that I've ever been a part of.
I know. I don't know if you remember what I said on the broadcast. I was like, man, down in New Orleans, my body fat is up and my blood pressure's up. I definitely enjoyed some of that good New Orleans food, but then during the game or as we got down, especially in the second half, my blood pressure was up a little bit.
Listen, anybody who's been in the French Quarter walking up and down Bourbon Street, there's highs and lows. It can be a very long day. A very long day. You never know which direction things are going to go. And the voodoo hit there, I was worried at the end there when they had one shot to go for it and win.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, as they're going, driving, trying to get in score position, score their touchdown. In my mind, I'm thinking, I feel like they're going to go for two because if you look at the Saints, they didn't have anything to lose. Hey, you're at home, you got momentum in your favor. Why not try to win it in regulation and not risk going to overtime? So I felt like it was the right call by Rizzi to do what he did, and fortunate for us, we were able to make one more play defensively and get out of there with a victory.
I mean, listen, too. I mean, he said this in his post game. Like, they didn't want to give Jaden Daniels the ball back. I think this is very similar to when Dan Quinn decided to not kick a field goal in Philadelphia when we were down 8 minutes to go. And part of his reasoning was we had to score touchdowns. Like, we were having trouble stopping them. Rizzi admitted that after the game. I think his quote was, if you told me before the game we were going to hold them to 20 points and 6 in the second half, I would have told you we were going to win and that we didn't want to give the ball back to that guy. So the respect for Jaden Daniels earned here, obviously, is growing and growing and growing around the league.
No, without a doubt. And, it's a situation, again, they have momentum in their favor. So getting that late score, the Dome was rocking. They had come back they were down 17 points at one time in that game, 17-0, and to fight back, claw back, and put themselves in position to convert that 2-point conversion and win the game. I thought it was the right decision for him to make, and fortunate for us that the Igbenogany, he had tight enough coverage, and we were able to get out of there with that victory.
Yeah, let's go through what I'd like to call, to start here, because this is a weird game, stats you love and stats you don't. And I want to start with those stats you love, because I think there's a lot here that there's, the best part about this is they won. So when they do tell the truth Monday, there's a lot of truth telling to be told here of a number of things. Yeah. Sacks, penalties, all that type of stuff that occurred in the game that in my opinion, kept it close. Because look at some of these stats I'm going to read you now, and you're not going to believe that this was a 1-point game that came down to one play. Time of possession, they had the ball almost 41 minutes. They won the turnover margin, didn't turn the ball over, had the ball for 40 minutes, and almost lost. Like, that almost never happens.
At all. Not at all. And you're scratching your head, and you're probably still like, man, how do you dominate the time of possession, do the things that you did. Why was that game so close and nearly a loss, as you said at the end? But then you delve into it and you see all of the self-inflicted wounds, their penalties that were killing drives, that were killing momentum, the missed field goal, the offensive penalties, the defensive penalties, all those different things that took place where when you add those things up, especially the penalties, you say, okay, this is the reason why the game was as close.
Let me give you another one too, and I think this was one of my favorite ones. Third downs, 9 of 17. You're going to take that all day. This was an out, and a lot of this was Jaden, and I think there's ups and downs with Jaden's play. His numbers, again, if you just look at the box score at the day he had, didn't turn the ball over, rushed the ball the way he did. Obviously, most of it, none of it was really, very few of it was designed. Most of it was scrambles of the major yardage that he got. Passing stats, high percentage, completion percentage, no turnovers, over 200 yards passing again, couple touchdown passes. And then you'll see the other stuff later, like the misses to Terry, the sacks, like there's a lot here on both sides. But again, if you just look at his line, you go, here's the Heisman winner striking a pose in Louisiana again.
No, without a doubt. I will say this, the one thing, like you mentioned, the running, it wasn't necessarily design runs. It was a lot of the scrambles, the plays that he made, especially on third down to convert some third downs. From the passing game standpoint, we didn't really have the explosive plays. He missed Terry. He overthrew Terry on one play down the middle. And on the other one that Terry nearly caught 2 or 3 times, Terry actually slowed down for a half a second, and that kind of threw the timing off of that, but didn't have the explosive plays in the passing game. New Orleans, they played a ton of cover 2. And with that, they were able to stop the run playing cover 2. As we mentioned, a lot of the run success that they had was Jaden off-schedule plays, scrambles, and things like that. So those run yards, you see, hey, we rushed for over 120-something yards, but it really wasn't in the course of the structured, hey, we're going to design run plays either for Jaden or B-Rob or McNichols. It was more Jaden scrambling. The Saints, they did a great job taking away the deep stuff, taking away the shot plays, taking away the crossing routes. Kudos to them. I didn't think their defense was as good as they played, and they dominated the point of attack in the run game. So there's something, as you're looking at the film and you talk about Tell the Truth Monday, when they're in their meetings, we had some mental errors on blocking assignments in the run game, guys not sustaining blocks and not leaving some guys unblocked and also losing their one-on-one battle. So it's a lot that we need to correct, but it's good that we're correcting these things in a victory, but we got to be better, especially against the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday.
Yeah. Let me get to one of those stats you don't love here, which is this was going in one of those, let's not overthink this thing. The Saints give up the most yards per carry in the NFL heading into this game. They have a bottom 5 rush defense. There's a lot of reasons, I think, for that. And Washington's got a top 5 rush offense, and they've got dynamic playmakers running the ball, great scheme, all this stuff. I walked in going, if they can get a lead, they're just going to run the ball down this team's throat. They'll probably, end up winning the game. And I want to give the Saints a lot of credit here because the stat you don't love, Jaden's numbers look really good, but a lot of it, again, was off schedule, really just great athletic plays that he made on his own. B-Rob and Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols, 24 carries, 71 yards. B-Rob, 3.1 a carry. That's a surprise off of it. I mean, it's an honest surprise off of this game. Here's a rush defense that's struggling. Here's a rush offense that thrives and really is the identity of the team offensively. What do you make of what the Saints were able to do yesterday?
Well, as I mentioned, it was more of us. The Saints were more physical at the point of attack. They defeated blocks. There were times where we didn't work our double teams and work up to the second level, getting to the linebacker. There was times when there were mental errors on, if we're running our counter plays and some of the other things where not identifying who you're supposed to block. There were times where we just ran past unblocked defenders thinking we were going up to the second level when there was a guy on the first level that you should have blocked, and we left him free, and then he's making a tackle either in the backfield or at the line of scrimmage. Again, it wasn't the Saints. The Saints won their one-on-one matchups, their one-on-one battles more often than we did, and that was the reason. And they didn't have to, and they did it, Bram, with the 7-man box. It wasn't like they had the safeties. We played a lot. They played a lot of cover two, a lot of 2 deep looks, and their front 7 was able to stop our run game. And that when you're able to do that, and you don't have to rotate a safety to the box, play 8-man fronts. They called a couple run blitzes and timely run blitzes, and that played a part. But for the majority of that game, it was a 7-man box, and their front won those matchups, and that was the reason why we weren't able to run the ball. I don't know if we got caught up in looking at their rankings coming into the game and feeling like, okay, yeah, we just came off a game where we ran for 260-something yards against the Titans, who was a really good run defense. And then, you come into this game against the Saints and like, oh, they're not that great. We should be able to run the ball effectively against them and didn't have the proper mindset going into the game. I don't know if that was the case, but for whatever reason, it has to be better. It has to be a whole lot better against a much better Philadelphia Eagles defensive front.
Yeah, I think going in, what I saw, and obviously tell me if you think it's just off. What I saw with the Saints defense is a very fast, active front. Actually, Chase Young's having a very nice year for them. He was top 5 in quarterback pressures. The other side, Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan, these are good pros. They're very good pass rushing players. Up the middle, though, that they're quick, but not necessarily stout. Their linebackers are outstanding. Demario Davis is kind of light. He's had a terrific career. Pete Warner's very good linebacker, good tackler. If you can get to the second level, though, that's where you don't see the willingness of their secondary to make the type of plays to support the run game. And that's where I thought over time that Washington would kind of break their back. If they could get just a few runs to get to the secondary, you're going to test them whether they want to be physical and stop people like Brian Robinson. And it just never got tested because they were losing up front. So I'm not really sure if this was just a well-schemed day for New Orleans, but I do think there's some self-scouting that needs to go in off of the bye week, that this was the one team who struggled against the run, weren't maybe as physical on the back end as you would expect a team to be good against the run, and yet they didn't need them to make those plays against the run game.
Yeah, you asked, was it a well-schemed day? The scheme that they run wasn't exotic. It wasn't anything, where they're doing a bunch of run blitzing or stunning or all kind of, cross dogs and all that. It was literally, they won their one-on-one matchups. They were more physical at the point of attack. They defeated blocks. Sometimes guys just flat out missed their blocks, either by quick movement, stuff like that. I mean, there were mental errors in the blocking game, not getting their right targets in the run game. And again, also just leaving some unblocked defenders where you should have, hey, you gotta take away the first color that shows up. And, two guys, sometimes there were two guys blocking the same guy. There was also penetration that took place that knocked off some of the pullers in our counter games and our power type run plays. So it was a combination of a lot of different things. And it wasn't even about scheme. It was just these guys, the New Orleans Saints defensive front, especially their defensive line, they won at the point of attack more often than not.
The other number that obviously is troubling is 8 sacks. That's a season high. We were talking about this early in the game. Jaden Daniels admitted this. Dan Quinn said it too. This isn't all on the offensive line. Daniels was a little more indecisive than he's been. He took some of those sacks. They were either, however you want to call them, coverage sacks, or he didn't let it rip a few times and he got caught with it. And that's why I think the number ended up where it was. And I remember early in the game when we were doing it, I was talking to you going, he's seeing things that he's not expecting here. So I don't know, in thinking about it again and reviewing it again, what was New Orleans doing to make him indecisive with the ball early in the game?
Again, they were playing a lot of cover too. So again, it wasn't some exotic schemes on the back end. He held the ball at least 2 or 3 occasions. 2 or 3 of those sacks where Jaden just holding on to the football too long, where he had opportunities to take a check down, to get rid of the football. But there also were times where our offensive linemen got beat too. They got beat, and there was immediate pressure in his face. And, some of the one sack in the goal line on the 3rd and 1 where it was a design bootleg, he was going to boot out, and Cam Jordan just makes a phenomenal play. So that's a sack right there that goes down. There was a couple other times where there was just immediate pressure. So I would say maybe two or three of those sacks were on Jaden. There was also some times where he scrambled and he may have lost a yard trying to scramble to throw the football away, and those go down the sack. So it was just they never really got into a real flow offensively.
No, and
that really helped. Some of the penalties put us in 3rd and longer situations, obvious passing downs, and the Saints were able to pin their ears back. I thought you mentioned Chase Young. I thought Chase had a couple really nice rushes against Brandon Coleman, and he was able to get to Jaden a couple times. And a lot of those guys, man, they play really good football on the defensive front for the New Orleans Saints, and that's really the bottom line. It wasn't all of a sudden these exotic schemes where they're showing you one look and then at the snap they're rotating to these other different coverages, and that forces you to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. It was not that at all.
Yeah. The other thing that it's worth pointing out here is I don't know how much we're talking about this had they hit on some of the opportunities that they had.
Yeah.
There were 3 deep chances to Terry McLaurin. One that was down the middle that you referenced that was just overthrown by a hair. He would have had to hit him in stride. There was a second one down the field that probably maybe deserved a call, just didn't get it. It was subjective, whatever. That one was was the underthrown one that was close coverage, whatever. The call was made. The one that feels like the miss to me was the one you referenced about him down the sideline, where it was a total blown coverage. He was wide open. He did slow down a hair on that route. However, that's the one I wish Jaden just took a touch off of it, because he was so wide open that bare minimum, even if he has to slow down to make the catch, it's a 30, 40, 50-yard play, but there wasn't anybody within 10 yards of him. Even if he took a little bit off of it to make sure the catch was made, it still might have been a touchdown.
Yeah, no, so what in that play, they went to a cover 2, and the corner didn't disrupt Terry's route at all. So Terry got a free release. Jaden's trying to hold the safeties, so he's looking down the middle of the field to hold that cover 2 safety. And the cover 2 safety, he was terrible on his landmark. So I'm sure in practice, Jaden is hitting Terry in stride. So it's hey, I'm gonna hold the safety, then come throw it, and he, from a timing standpoint, Terry probably is running full speed the whole time. And as Terry came out, he was probably thinking in practice it was probably a honey hole shot where you're hitting it between the corner and the safety. So it's more of a honey hole shot. But because the safety was so bad, he never even got in a position to where he was even going to be over top of Terry. Jaden sees that, and he's throwing in more like a go ball, a deep go ball. So it just was a little Terry initially, I'm sure he's feeling like in practice, this was always a honey hole shot between the safety, between the corner. Terry's like, Jaden sees, hey, this safety's not getting over there at all. This is just a true go ball. So that was probably why Terry slowed down just a hair when he, when he beat the corner. He slowed down just a hair, and that's what led to that being an incompletion.
And we deal with this every week. I can't decide if your dog likes this show or dislikes this show. You have to tell me.
Reese, do you like the show or not? Come here, baby girl. Let me put Reese. Reese, come back and debut.
I feel like every time we bring up anything with Terry, he's a Terry fan. That if you say anything that's critical about Terry, the dog gets very angry and tries to as a rebuttal.
She's a Terry fan too. Yeah, no, Reese is making she loves being around me. Like wherever I go, she's gonna always be right at me, right at my feet. Yeah.
So anyway, I want to get back to the point about the missed opportunities here. Either way, we'd be talking about the penalties. Either way, we'd be talking about the sacks. Either way, we'd be talking about some of these missed opportunities. But just think about this for a second. They missed a field goal, albeit a long one, 54-yard attempt. And we can talk about that decision if you want in a little bit. They missed 3. Any of the 3 could have been touchdowns to Terry. They hit any of them, right? There was the inside the 5 goal line call where they called a design where Jaden went to the outside. Saints weren't fooled, ended up kicking a field goal there. So let's see. By my math, that's if they hit one of these deep shots to Terry, and I feel like the one miss is the one that we just went through, we're talking about a 35 to 40 point game again, even with all the miscues. Yeah. That's where they are, that they could be off. They could not have what I think is their best attribute, their run game going the way they're accustomed to it going. And it was self-inflicted wounds and mistakes that kept them away from scoring 30 to 40 points again. And the game's never close.
No, you're absolutely right. But just from a standpoint of being sharp, especially you want to be sharp right now. December football, January football, coming off sometimes with the bye. We needed it from a physical standpoint, getting guys healthy. Guys were, as Dan Quinn mentioned, guys were running on fumes. So you needed that bye week from recharging recharging physically, recharging mentally and emotionally. But sometimes too, it can also throw off your rhythm. That game against Tennessee, man, we were outstanding offensively, just especially in the run game. You have that 2 weeks off and coming to the game, and it just didn't look the same from a run game standpoint. And yet we're still put ourselves in position to, as you mentioned, hit a couple more plays, and it's 35 point game, and we're feeling really good about ourselves. But it's great to be able to have this discussion and say, and it's after a victory, we got to have more focus, got to be better against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'll say this, in some way, it's actually better that we had that type of performance, and from a run game standpoint, also from a penalty standpoint, because now in practice, guys are going to be ultra focused, uber focused, and like, hey, we got to be better. We got to make sure we're blocking the right guys. We're sustaining blocks. We're doing all the right things. So it's actually a good thing that we got the victory, but didn't play as well as we need to play. So practice will be outstanding, in my opinion.
I think it's worth pointing out, too, Tyler Biadasz woke up with an illness and was all of a sudden out. So you're switching out a guy who might be a Pro Bowler this year at the center position.
Should be a Pro Bowler.
Last minute.
No, yeah, he should be a Pro Bowler.
That's a big deal. That like last minute, 90 minutes before the game, your starting center who might be a Pro Bowler this year is suddenly just out. That's a big deal yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And early in that ball game, and when you saw a couple procedure penalties or snaps where it was just a little bit off. There was a snap that was off that threw off the timing on the RP or zone read. There was just you saw that the timing of the offense wasn't as fluid as we had grown accustomed to. And to Dieter's credit, to be able to be called on, and I don't know how many plays he took actually in practice with the starting offensive line, because typically he's probably working more the scout team stuff. He may get 2 snaps of a series in those periods with the first team offense. So for him to be able to go in there and do what he needed to do, hats off to him. But there was just the offense was a hair off in timing. The Saints also, they took advantage of the crowd noise playing in that dome, the silent counts. They jumped the snap a couple times because they felt like, okay, they're not going to be a bunch of hard counts. I don't think we did any hard counts. And so they were jumping. They were jumping the snap count, getting off, and that allowed penetration to happen, immediately. There were some times where, the ball was snapped and the Saints defensive lineman, he was already, across the line of scrimmage and right into our interior offensive line. So they took advantage of that as well.
I mean, speaking of the crowd noise too, I mean, like, we're going to get a new stadium, wherever it's going to be at some point in time. Go listen to the acoustics in that place. It's
you just want to duplicate that, Brad?
Oh, it's amazing. It's like when you're there. One, I don't know how it's built, but it's big, but it feels like everybody's on top of the field. It's loud. Yeah. Their fans are into it. I thought we can talk about this later. There were Commanders fans everywhere in the French Quarter down there. Everywhere. That was really cool to see over the weekend. How many people were down there wearing burgundy and gold. It was awesome. But like that place acoustically, if you can replicate that, because that environment feel like you see why the Saints home record is what it is through the years. It is hard to win in that place. It is loud. You feel like these people are on top of you. It's a true home field advantage down there.
Hey, listen, you were loving that acoustic because you mentioned that to me probably about 10 times, man.
I love it.
You would probably love to go to a concert in the Dome, wouldn't you?
I'd love to go to a concert in the Dome. But I mean, like, this is what you want, though. People show up for this. You feel like your home field, you own your home field. And the acoustics matter. It's crazy in there, how loud it is. The atmosphere they put together, it's really cool. Really, really cool environment. So all right, here's another thing that I thought was good.
Hey, Brad, yeah. So, Brad, you want to go to ownership and be like, hey, duplicate this dome. This is what we want.
I got a lot of ideas. Once we get through Congress and legislation and all of that stuff, and we can start talking about where the stadium's going to go and actually build the thing, wherever it's, I don't even care where it goes, wherever it ends up. I got a lot of ideas. Shoot me a text. I'd love to meet with you. I got the acoustics. The materials, I want this to feel very Washington, like it's got to feel like you're home. I got a lot of ideas that I would love to share with them if they're interested.
All right. Hey, I didn't know you had an architectural background.
I do it all, London. Haven't you figured this out yet? I do it all. Or at least I've told myself I do it all. Here's another one I thought that stood out from the game that I thought was good, because I think a big question coming in. The Noah Brown injury is a big deal for this offense. He had emerged, as I know, throughout the summer and into the season. They were like, it's number 2 by committee. There is no real number 2 receiver, but it's hard to deny that over the course of the season, he'd become that, to opposite of Terry McLaurin, that he'd become the secondary wide receiver target for them. Going into the game, there was something like everyone outside of Terry that was a wide receiver was, I think collectively they had like 65 catches. 35 of those were Noah Brown. So there was going to have to find a way to get production from the other group. Here's the target number. Olamide Zaccheaus 4, De'Ami Brown 4, Jamison Crowder, I thought a couple really big catches, 3. The vast majority of them, obviously Jaden was 25 of 31, very accurate yesterday. 3 of the misses were the 3 long attempts to Terry McLaurin. So almost everything in the intermediate to short zone was completed to a variety of different receivers. So I think that was a very good sign of that they're going to figure out a way to incorporate the other receivers now that Brown is out and likely out for a long period of time.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that they did, and I know they talked about this, about moving Terry around. So you look at Terry's targets. 10 targets in that ball game, but he wasn't primarily lining up on the left side. They moved him around. They put him in motion. They did a lot of different things. So really, a lot of the targets that Brown was getting, there was more opportunities and more targets for Terry. It was 10 targets. I don't know if that was a season high in terms of targets for Terry, but I know it was a lot more than he typically gets in the ball game. So, you know, credit to Cliff Kingsbury and the offensive staff saying, hey, identifying, all right, we no longer have Noah Brown. Terry's our guy that we definitely can count on, but let's move him around. Let's put him in favorable matchups. And as you just alluded to, there were opportunities that, you know, he hits on one of those, and Terry's well over 100 yards. He's probably close to 150. He had 2 touchdowns. We're talking about a 3 or 4 touchdown game for Terry if they just make a couple of those connections.
The other thing too, I want to go back to something you had said earlier that I noticed as well. Like there were some opportunities where you got to hit the first guy in the black jersey first, and they let some of that stuff go. Noah Brown, you know, obviously had become a primary target for them, a secondary primary target. He also was very good at drawing penalties down the field. That was another attribute that he had. But he also was a very willing participant blocking down the field. This is not to suggest that this group does it, but that is also another thing that's going to have to be replicated here. The physicality when the ball's just not coming your way is going to have to happen. And I think there's going to be a lot here to see in that realm for the receivers as well, that when they are part of the lack of success running the ball, the traditional run plays was some of that yesterday.
No, it was, and it wasn't just the wide receiver. It was a collection of everybody, Bram. I mean, it was offensive line not blocking, the right people or not sustaining blocks. It was tight ends having issues with blocks, and it was receivers also, with the blocking downfield or even blocking at the point of attack at the perimeter, some of the outside type runs. So it was, again, a collection of everybody. And in order to have success running the football, most people would just focus on the offensive line. Hey, the offensive line not doing the job, offensive line. But it's so many more. Same thing like with pass blocking. If a quarterback's getting sacked, the offensive line didn't do the job. Well, sometimes it might be a running back not picking up the blitz. It might be a tight end, not losing the battle. It may be somebody within the offensive line. It may be, a quarterback holding on to the ball. It's a lot of different things that go into it. But collectively as a group, they definitely missed Noah Brown because of his run prowess. But, it was also tight ends, O-line, and wide receivers that was a part of the problem with the run game.
So coming into the game, I was anticipating that, and this is from the coaches, that Terry was going to move around more, that they were going to target him more. That played out. The other thing that we anticipated is when you're trying to figure out, okay, where do you get this production from outside of Terry, that Dyami Brown was going to get more opportunities. He did. They handed the ball off to him a couple times, tried to use his speed on the end of rounds. They targeted him 4 times, which is more than usual, but someone's going to have to step up. So let me ask you about him, because we've kind of waited for a role to emerge for him for a number of years now, actually. And here it is in front of him. And it started yesterday with the Saints. He's got a few more games here to really emerge as a primary, secondary target to Terry McLaurin on this team.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity for Dyami, being counted on. You mentioned he had the 4 targets. There'll be more opportunities for him down the stretch. If he plays well, he's a free agent after this year, and you don't want to focus on strictly that piece. But if he's able to have an uptick in the production, he can really put himself in a great position to either re-sign here or hit the market and put himself in a position to make some money. But he's got to continue to evolve and add more to his plate and let him. There were times where I know he was. There were probably some other opportunities where he was targeted or he would have been a primary, but for some reason the Saints did a good job of taking those things away. And there was going to be more targets towards Dyami, but the Saints defensive backs, they did a good job with their coverage and then also some of the pass rush didn't allow those plays to develop. But I'm sure we'll see more of a role for Dyami, more shots down the field with him, more intermediate stuff, more opportunities to get him the ball because of his speed. And he has a really good feel for, running those tunnel screens and wide receiver screens and all those types of things. So I can definitely see him playing a bigger role. And you mentioned Jamison Crowder. Yeah, I thought Jamison's really good, and he didn't play a ton of snaps, but I also can see them playing him a lot more because Jamison has been a guy who's had success as a receiver in this league, and he knows how to get open in zones. He knows how to win routes, especially in that intermediate level or winning with his quickness. So I can see him playing a bigger role too moving forward.
I want to do one more on the offense and we'll get to the defense here. And that's Jaden Daniels. Obviously took too many sacks. He's the first one to admit this. The penalties, I think part of it was there was some indecision on his part. So some of that was there. There were a couple prominent misses. Yeah. I'm sure he wishes he had back because any one of those 3 to McLaurin, I don't think this game's close. Any of them hit and they score a touchdown there. I'm not sure the game ends up being close. So there are these near misses, right? That said, he, on that 4th and 1, put his body on the line and leaped over 2 people to keep a drive going. He had one in the first half that got out of a sack of Carl Granderson on a 3rd down play, got out of a dead to right sack, beat Werner to the corner and got to the line to gain to extend a drive. On a long 3rd down, he had a crazy 24-yard rush that he was able to scramble, that he was able to continue a drive. He had a long 3rd down. We went through the 3rd down stats where he hit a strike to Zacchaeus. He had the one to Crowder that was low that Crowder made a terrific catch on. He had the touchdown throw to Terry that we've had a year of highlights. This one was ridiculous, where he extended the play, dropped the ball, picked it up, throws it into traffic, dime to McLaurin in between his own teammate and two Saints defenders. We can complain all we want. If that's his bad game, wait till you see his good games. Because honestly, he had 5 or 6. And this goes back to what the head coach of the Saints said, Darren Rizzi. He's like, there's just some things about this guy that you can't defend, which is why he said, if we're going to hold him to 20, we're happy with that. Like, that's a good outcome. He had, again, a handful of magic moments that separates him from so many other players.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And make no mistake, he didn't have a bad game. He held on. He took a couple sacks he, could have avoided just by getting rid of the football. But without Jaden Daniels, we don't win this ball game.
No.
I'm sorry. If Jaden doesn't make the plays that he made, especially the off-schedule stuff, we don't win that ball game. And that's how good the whole conversation about is Bo Nix going to be in contention with him rookie of the year. That conversation is over. This is Jaden's award to, he's done enough to win that award, but the plays that he made, especially off schedule with his legs, converting, whether it was running, getting the first downs on a couple of occasions, or the play that you described where he's back there looting traffic, looting Saints defenders, drops the ball, picks it up, and hits Terry. I mean, the one throw that he made in the goal line area red zone, where they go play action, and he hits Terry on a crosser. I mean, he threw a missile in there to Terry. Just absolutely another beautiful throw. Jaden was outstanding, and his performance definitely keyed us to that victory.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to dismiss Brock Bowers. He's having maybe the best rookie season any tight end has ever had. He's going to have over 1,000 yards receiving. Obviously, he's on a bad team, so he's not getting as much publicity because they're not in the playoff hunt. He's having a great year, but this comparison to him and Bo Nix, to me, I'm like you, that's off the table now. Like, he is clearly the rookie of the year. I don't even think it's close. Like, they sent out some statistics that he's one of 3 rookie quarterbacks ever to hit a certain amount of passing yards and a certain amount of rushing yards. Every single week, he's got unprecedented numbers. He's number 3 or 4 in completion percentage. I cited this before. If he ends up leading the league in completion percentage, he'll be the first rookie quarterback to do that since the 1930s. Like, he's doing historic, unprecedented things, and then his highlights are off the charts. And yesterday was the epitome of it. Everyone's going to see the end of this game or how this team nearly lost. They're not going to see these crazy plays that he makes. And even, we were talking earlier about him. Like, yes, he took a lot of sacks. There was some indecision on his part. He never puts the ball in harm's way. Never. Even in those moments, he never does. I.e., again, no turnovers yesterday.
And no turnovers in a situation where, in a game that he took 8 sacks and was under pressure on other occasions. But as you mentioned, and when you mentioned his completion percentage, I went and looked at where he's at right now. He's 4th in the league, completing 70.5% of his passes. Tua is completing almost 74% of his passes. He's number 1. So, Jaden has a few more games like he had yesterday from a completion percentage standpoint. He'll put himself in a great position to potentially overtake Tua, but he still has a little bit of work to do in order to lead the league in completion percentages.
Let's get to the defense. Obviously, very different halves. Again, first half, Jake Haener makes his first start. They had that guy confused. He slipped and fell a few times when he had the pressure. They held him to 38 yards in the first half. And I think the number that really stands out, before Alvin Kamara got hurt, he made a great couple of catches. The one big play they had in the first half was him in the middle of the field. And of course, he had the great touchdown on the first score for New Orleans on the throwback pass from Cedric Wilson in the second half. But carrying the ball, 5 carries, 12 yards.
Yeah.
You're not going to do any better than that against that guy.
No, that was I thought the defense, as you mentioned, especially in the first half, man, they really stymied the Saints offense. They the defensive front put a lot of pressure on Haener. They played Haener so well, he ended up getting benched. They're like, all right, man, we're going to go to the rookie and see if he can spark this offense and give us some type of life. But I thought some of the penalties really hurt the defense in the second half. There were times where felt like getting sacked, getting pressure on the quarterback off the field, and it was a couple questionable roughing the passer penalties that you just like, man, was that really a roughing the passer penalty? That's I'm sure Dan Quinn and the team, they'll send those plays in and look for an explanation, and they might get a response back from the league saying you were correct. This wasn't necessarily a roughing the passer, and so there was definitely some things that hurt us defensively in the second half from a penalty standpoint. But I thought defensively in the first half, man, they were on it.
So this needs to be mentioned too, because this has been going on for weeks, but they give up a lot of points in the second half, pretty regularly. Yeah. It's been happening. It happened again yesterday, 19 points. Saints made the change. Remember, Washington started the second half with a near 7-minute drive to make it 17-0. So in the last 23 minutes of the game, the Saints put up 19 points on them. And some of it, I agree, was aided by what I think was some very questionable officiating. But that's not the whole story here. Things changed when Spencer Rattler came in. It's been a theme for this team that in the second half, like I looked up like before the game, in point differential in the first half, Washington was plus 77 coming in. So now it's plus 91 after being up 14-0 at half. In the second half, point differential for them overall, though, was plus 80, now plus 81 because they won by 1 point. So plus 77 first half, overall plus 81 tells you what's happening in the second halves of these games. They talk a lot about finishing. There is, when we do Tell the Truth Monday, there's a lot of work to be done here because this one should have never gotten away from them and almost did.
No, not at all. And again, I know Joe Witt Jr., he talked about during the bye week, they really looked at what they were doing in the second half of games, trying to figure out what's the reasoning behind the allowing so many points in the second half, and particularly the fourth quarter. Is it the calls that they're making? Is it the technique that they're teaching? Is it the players? All those type of things. And for some reason or another, a lot of the Saints' success in the second half of that game were penalties. We had 2 roughing the passers. There was a third down play where we're off the field and they get Benjamin St. Juste with illegal hands to the face, and that actually was a correct call. The second roughing the passer penalty against Fowler was after a 19-yard completion. Then you tack on another 15 yards. I mean, that's a 34 yards of field position right there in those 2 plays, and the Saints end up going down there. And to Spencer Rattler's credit, there was times he completed a big pass down the middle to MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, where Jeremy Chin, it's against the cover 2. Jeremy Chin, he's in a position and he's thinking he's going to intercept it, and Scantling makes a play in front of him. So that right there, that 39-yard play completion shouldn't happen. That's Jeremy Chin, either you catch it or nobody catches it. And so for Joe Witt Jr., he's like, okay, we can't allow that explosive play to happen.
I'll tell you what, that Jeremy Chin play, and Quan Martin was there too on the big play down the field to MVS. Rattler got hit when he threw it, so I give him a lot of credit that made that throw. Scantling made a terrific catch, so I want to give them credit where credit is due. This is one of those you can't win situations. He's going for the ball to try to get it. He doesn't make the interception. Jeremy Chin could also lay out Valdez-Scantling on that play. And if he does, you very likely get a defenseless receiver call. It's tough to play. Seriously. And then think about the officiating yesterday. Like, you don't think that was going to happen yesterday? Like, you can't win sometimes.
No, you're telling me. I played in the league long enough to where it became so difficult for a defender to play defense, especially for safeties. Those are the guys that typically are in position to have the big hits on receivers come across the middle. Linebackers, there are occasions where we could potentially hit a crossing receiver but it's really the safeties, the corner, from time to time. But there's a lot of times the safeties are the ones in position to where they got to make a decision. And especially a lot of it's a split second decision. You can have all the right intentions. Hey, I'm going to hit the guy in his chest area. Guy sees you. He lowers his head. And now the target changes and you're hitting the guy in the helmet, getting a penalty, getting fined, all those types of things. It's extremely difficult to play defense. It's even more difficult even to hit the quarterback. You can't fall with your full body weight on the guys. You can't hit them low. You can't hit them in the head and neck area. So it's definitely, from a defensive standpoint, we're at a disadvantage. And you got to worry about all these types of things when you're tackling ball carriers or quarterbacks.
So one more thing on the defense. So as you probably know, I don't pre-plan anything I'm going to say on the air, like during the game. Like I don't wait for anything, with the exception of if someone's going to break a record or there's some kind of big moment. Like I mark it down so that I say it on the broadcast so it can be marked for it. And then, hopefully this team makes the playoffs. If they do, I'll have something kind of pre-planned thought about if they do qualify for the playoffs or, win the division or something like that. I'll have something pre-planned. Very, very rarely do I think there's a moment where I want to pull something out. And I had Houdat in the holster waiting for Marshawn Latimore to do something in the game. And the Saints didn't throw the ball at him. So not once. Whether he broke a pass up, hopefully an interception, I had Houdat ready for that call. And they never threw the ball at him. So you want the utmost respect. The team that traded him away didn't even test him on any target.
Not at all. And if fans who weren't watching it closely, they were like, man, did Marshawn play? He played the whole game. But to like you said, they didn't test him at all. I watched him closely. He was in great position. A lot of plays. I'm sure he was hoping that they tested him, because what better opportunity? Hey, you're making your debut to a new football team against your old former team, and it's at the place that you spent the majority of your career prior to being traded, and you don't get one opportunity. So I know he's like, man, I wish I could have got at least an opportunity, because those are moments you dream of. It's like, okay, they're gonna test me.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get an interception. I'm gonna get a pick six. I'm gonna do something, and they didn't even test him at all. So.
No. And all the people who, kind of on the outside were going, okay, he comes in, Sanders still goes back to the slot. That's not how it played out yesterday. I'm not surprised by that. And Sanders still, again, had that interception was outstanding. His emergence as a clear, number 2, number 1, reliable corner inside outside is a major development for this team this year.
It is. His poise, his understanding. He explained how he made that interception. He was going against Alvin Kamara. He's like, hey, running backs, they're typically going to run, a clear out route or like a hitch, something quick. And his just understanding, baiting Hayner into throwing that football. I'll say this. You mentioned when we got Latimore, people were wondering, hey, was Sanders still going to go back to the slot? I think the player Igbenogany as a slot defender has also created a situation where we got a guy, we got Marshawn. We know he can play outside. Sanders still is doing a really good job playing outside. And Igbenogany is really, a guy who's done a really good job in the nickel spot. And that left Benjamin St. Juste as the odd man out in this situation, because, those other guys, especially Sanders Steele and Igbenogany, they've excelled in the roles that they're playing now.
Yeah. All right. One more thing from the game, elephant in the room. The referees admit they made a mistake at the end of the game. I was screaming that clock stopped. It should not have stopped. Obviously, if you see the replay, you'll see the side judge made a mistake by running in. And this is not college football. You don't stop the clock on a first down. They didn't have a timeout. He was clearly in bounds. I don't know what they were thinking. And then obviously the clock operator on that signal stopped the clock. It was just a mistake. Through the pool reporting, they've admitted that mistake. Dan Quinn doesn't want to get fined because he's not going to say anything about it. The team can't say anything about it. I got to tell you, I think the NFL's very lucky that Washington won. Otherwise, they get this wrong. And I couldn't tell you on the top of my head would they have had enough time to run one more play anyway, and then it wouldn't have mattered if there was 1 second on the clock? Or should it have hit 0 and it should have never happened? I don't know. But I do know that if the Saints had won that game, it would have affected the entire NFC playoff race. And it would have been a massive, massive mistake had it gone that way. And I think they're lucky that Washington ended up winning and it didn't affect it in that way, because there's just no excuse for what happened at the end of the game with the clock.
Yeah, no, you were spot on. You were all over it.
All right, it's time to give out the belt. Time to do it. Big Fletch's championship heavyweight belt, because we got to win. The current champion, right, is Terry McLaurin. Is that right, Jason? Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
Who's the contender this week for the belt?
All right, man. So it was a situation where a lot of black guys played some good football, did some good things, and the thing is, though, I had to look at what Jaden did in that ball game, and you would love to look at somebody on the defensive side, and there were some guys on the defensive side that did some good things. Sarah Steele, he had the interception, a couple sacks by some guys, but Terry's stats: 7 receptions, 73 yards, 2 touchdowns. He, as a reigning champ, he did some good things to put himself in a position to keep his belt. And then I was like, okay, who else is a real legitimate contender? I said, man, it has to be Jaden. Completed 80% of his passes, 226 yards, but he threw the 2 touchdowns. But then you look at the rushing yards, 66 yards rushing. And he just made so many plays in that game to extend drives, to the play that he made to throw the first touchdown to Terry, jumping over a pile on 4th and 1 to convert a first down. All the things he did in that ball game. And Graham, I think you can tell where I'm leaning with this. It's a situation where I have to announce and new heavyweight champion of the Big Fletcher Commanders championship belt, Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels,
he's the champ.
The winner.
He's the champ.
I'm going to give a secondary belt out to you, because I didn't know this in real time, but you made the broadcast on Fox yesterday because of the Bobby Wagner stuff from a couple weeks ago, where he got his 13th consecutive 100 tackle season. You're the only one with more, 14 consecutive. You're getting some run. You got the run yesterday. They showed our booth on Fox talking about your record.
Yeah, I was getting, we're calling the game, and next thing you know, I'm getting text messages of me in the booth, and I was like, what's going on? And then, obviously found out what happened. And, I appreciate that. I told Bobby, I appreciate him keeping me relevant. And it's good to get a little, get this face on television, man.
Got that run. You got that run. It's nice. I know it's funny. Like whenever, it's so funny. Like we're there, we're calling the game, but if anyone else says anything about it, that seems to be more important than us just being there calling the game. People are like,
I know, like, exactly.
They're profiling London. They're showing your booth. And I'm like, I know, we're here every week.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fun, man. I'm glad. I'm glad you and CJ, you made the broadcast as well. CJ's forehead made it.
So that was very cool. I thought that was really nice of them to do that. Our old buddy Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma, of course, great linebacker through the years, profiling you. I thought that was really cool in the Fox broadcast. All right, before we go, rematch Philadelphia. Because they won against Pittsburgh, they've won 10 in a row now. They'd have to lose out for Washington to have a shot at the division. So that seems unlikely. They have 2 home games to end the season. Dallas and New York. Obviously, New York's already eliminated, and Dallas probably will be by the time we get around to next week because of everyone's record. So the idea that they're going to lose 3 in a row is probably a little far-fetched, but this is a big opportunity for Washington. So think back to the first matchup, first go-around. What are you thinking about that Washington needs to do a little differently when they face Philadelphia this weekend?
Yeah, they're going to have a better plan to deal with Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter, he was extremely disruptive in that ball game. He really, from a run game standpoint, he just single-handedly just was destroying everything we were trying to do. So having a better plan to block him. I thought defensively we did a lot of good things, especially containing Saquon early in that ball game, and then for 3.5 quarters, the defense did a lot of really good things. And late in the game, he was able to break off a couple long runs. So understanding that, hey, it's going to be a 60-minute fight. Got to have a better plan to block Jalen Carter and also, the Philadelphia's defensive front. Again, I mentioned, how the New Orleans Saints defensive front really did some really good things against our offense. So the Saints defensive line is even better. So we're going to have a better game plan against them. Defensively, how are we going to stop Saquon? That's going to be, the public enemy one. And I love the fact that we're going to have Marshawn Latimore for this game. So, is he going to follow AJ Brown? That's the question. Or will we be able to just continue to shore up the pass defense, not have to play so much two shell, commit a little bit more to stopping the run. So I'm interested to see what Marshawn Latimore's impact on this ball game will be.
There's a few things too, just to note, like historically, if Washington wins one more game this season, for Dan Quinn, it will be his 10th in his first season as Washington's head coach. That would be the most ever by any head coach in their first season coaching this team. He tied George Allen yesterday, who did that in actually 14 games in the early 1970s when that was 14-game schedule. But he got number 9, so that ties him most ever for rookie head coach. That'd be very cool. At least one of the next 3 for Dan Quinn to get that. Terry McLaurin got touchdown catches 10 and 11. The record is 12, for a receiver all time. So he's got a chance to break that record. He almost had 5 yesterday, but he's got a chance to break that record. And Jaden Daniels, I think he has some kind of premier performance where Washington beats Philadelphia. We're going to completely end nationally the conversation about who rookie of the year is, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that conversation is, and in my opinion, you still have 3 games and you want him to still continue to play well down the stretch. But just from look at it from a DQ standpoint, and just think about how many people all of the noise was made when he was hired, and like, hey, we should have hired this guy, wanted to get somebody with the offensive background. His ability to just turn this thing around so quickly, him, Adam Peters, but the culture and the way he has these guys believing in each other, competing at a high level week in and week out, the brotherhood that they talk about, and you can feel it. You can feel it. You and I, we're around it. We know how connected they are as a football team, how competitive they are. And Dan Quinn, he needs to get some consideration for Coach of the Year, especially when you look at all the turnover for this roster. The team wasn't expected to be in this position that they're in. He definitely needs to get some consideration for Coach of the Year.
Adam Peters, too, Executive of the Year. Think about the turnover and what this roster looks like, and they're this close to making the playoffs and qualifying and being competitive in a division. I think that's worth discussing as well. There's a lot of accolades that are deserved. But first things first, let's get to Philadelphia this week. Another heavyweight battle for this team, so I'm really excited about it. And we'll review that next week on the Booth Review.